Turning now to the Middle East, Israel has deported more than 170 activists, including climate campaigner Greta Thunberg, from an intercepted aid flotilla that attempted to break the naval blockade around Gaza. This comes, of course, as Israeli and Hamas officials are holding indirect talks in Egypt. Today, they are discussing the U.S. proposed peace plan. Tomorrow will mark 2 years since that horrific attack that sparked the war. Secretary of State Marco Rubio laid out some of the hurdles that will need to be ironed out at those talks to get those remaining hostages out. Listen to this.
What those talks should be about, and some of that conversation is already happening now, it's not waiting until Monday in Cairo, is the logistics behind the release of these hostages. How do you stop the fighting? Who's going to go in and get them? You know, when are they going to be released? Where are they picked up? What are the processes for this?
For more on this, I'm joined by CBS News reporter Haley Ott, who's been following developments out of Jerusalem for us this morning. So, Haley, I've seen video coming out of Israel showing people taking to the streets, protesting. They want to get these hostages home. And it sounds to me, or it looks to me, as if those protests are there to pressure Prime Minister Netanyahu to accept the deal that President Trump has laid out. What are you hearing?
Good morning, Vlad. Yes, people have been taking to the streets here and demanding that their government do something, work to achieve this deal in order to bring the hostages home. They're hopeful today, but there have been proposals floated before that have fallen through, so they're reluctant to really get their hopes up. And coming up to 2 years since the October 7th attack, there's a real sense of desperation here to get those remaining hostages home. Earlier this morning, we spoke to former Israeli ambassador to the U.S., Alan Pincus, who gave us his read on how he thinks these negotiations will go, whether there will actually be a hostage and prisoner exchange. Take a listen to what he said.
I'd give it a 50% shot of happening because both sides have both sides feel the pressure to get this done. Israel feels the pressure from the U.S. and Hamas feels the pressure from Qatar, from Turkey, from Egypt, from Jordan, and from Saudi Arabia. As for the rest of the plan, the likelihood goes down from 50% to maybe 10%. I just doubt it's going to happen. Even this phase is going to be is ambiguous and amenable to interpretations, and I don't see it going smoothly.
So Pincus told us there was hope, but also a lot of factors that could lead to these negotiations breaking down. Vlad?
Yeah, so Haley, it's so interesting because certainly someone who has experience in the diplomatic facet of these kinds of negotiations, like the ambassador, would have that kind of insight. But then I wonder, because President Trump is sort of a chaos agent, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that he's unpredictable, and he's suggesting through social media he's actually it seems as if he's encouraging Prime Minister Netanyahu to stop military activities in Gaza, to only undertake any military activities if they are defensive in nature as opposed to an offensive bombing campaign, for example. And I wonder what the response has been from Netanyahu to the president, posting on social media, for example, videos showing the protests against the prime minister and asking the prime minister to stop the bombing while the diplomats hammer this out. Has there been a let-up at all in the fighting?
That's an excellent point. And as you say, President Trump is a hugely important person for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and he is responding to the influence of President Trump. But despite those posts on Truth Social that you're referencing, we were near the border with Gaza yesterday, for example, and we heard and felt a number of very large explosions. And our sources there say while there have been fewer strikes since the proposal was announced, strikes are continuing. At least 24 people were killed in Gaza in the last day, according to health officials there. And an Israeli government spokesperson said that certain kinds of bombings had stopped, but there currently is no ceasefire in Gaza.
All right, Haley Ott for us, reporting from Tel Aviv, actually from Jerusalem. Haley, thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, for more on today's events in the Middle East, I want to bring in Lucy Kurtzer-Ellenbogen. She's a senior fellow at the Middle East Institute. So Lucy, you could hear the conversation that Haley and I were having. Tomorrow, as you know, marks 2 years since that horrific attack by Hamas. Is this somehow the beginning of the end of this conflict, or do you see it as some do, which is Hamas, for example, has not responded to the proposal put forth by President Trump that requires them to disarm and to not have any role at all, politically or otherwise, in the future of Gaza. They've responded to the hostages being released, and there are sort of bits of the proposal, as you know, that they've agreed to, but not the proposal in full.
Yes, that's correct. And I think as some of the segment we heard just before this, Ambassador Pincus in particular pointed out, there's a lot of ambiguity built already into the 20-point plan, and there certainly has been in the response we've seen from Hamas so far. Certainly 2 years on from this most devastating, unprecedentedly devastating, even by the standards of this conflict. 2 years on from that, there's certainly the hope, certainly from the people on the ground in Gaza and the families of the hostages, this is the beginning of the end. But there is a lot that could still go wrong as these ambiguities are worked out or clarified.
So the president has urged the negotiators at the talks to, quote, move quickly. There's also been some reporting from Axios and other news organizations that the president has become exasperated by Prime Minister Netanyahu. So how, in your estimation, do you think these talks will go? Will we see swift movement?
Look, I think there is some chance that we will see swift movement over the next few days if there is going to be success on this first part of the agreement, which is getting the hostages released, the ceasefire formally in place, and the beginning of the exchange of prisoners and everything that flows from there. As you mentioned, President Trump is going to be bringing his leverage to bear where he most has it, which is on Prime Minister Netanyahu. You've already seen some of that pressure put out publicly over Truth Social and otherwise. And in parallel, you're going to see Egypt, Qatar, to some degree Turkey, those who have the leverage on Hamas, probably applying the same kind of pressure there. The political will is certainly there from the third parties, the outside actors. And the question is, will the parties themselves be able to move now to get this over the finish line?
Yeah, we'll be watching. Everybody hoping that there is an end to this conflict, specifically those people who are still waiting for those 48 hostages, both dead and alive, to finally come home to their families. Lucy Kurtzer-Ellenbogen, thank you very, very much for your insight and analysis. We appreciate it.